Today, we're talking about a fresh start in the new year. So let's get into it.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland, presented by Prairie View Wealth Partners. Live your 2 life.
We're about wrapped up for 2024, about to start the new year.
Yeah, new year, new gear.
So a couple episodes ago, we talked about kind of budgeting for Christmas and how do you go about that? So maybe let's start talking about how do you go into a new year?
Yeah, so I think there's like lots of things. So I don't know what other people do, but for me, one of the habits that I have is I take some time towards the end of one year, beginning of the next, and I set some goals in really probably 6 categories of life. And as I start doing that, I always name my year. So like this year in 2024, it's the year of the impossible. So kind of like we were talking, I think at the end of last episode, a lot of changes at Prairie View. We've got our office. We're selling one building and buying into a different one. We're releasing a book. We are starting a tax service. I'm learning to fly. That was my year of the impossible.
Not like emotionally learning to fly, like you're actually learning to fly, right?
Yes, totally. Yeah. Well, yes.
I believe you can fly.
This enters the karaoke part of our event. And so for me, what that does is it helps me to like kind of create a theme that then drives a lot of what I'm doing in the new year. And as I do that, I talk about, setting these goals in 6 different areas. The areas that I look at are, and I won't remember them all off the top of my head, but I have business goals, I have financial goals, I have spiritual goals, I have goals for my family. I have physical goals that I want to do for my physical being. And so then as I start looking at those, I can start saying, okay, how am I going to now structure my year around some of those goals to really have a successful year? And sometimes I hit all of them. Sometimes I hit none of them. Sometimes, I shouldn't say, I usually always hit at least 1 or 2 of them, but setting that theme. And so as I enter to the new year, one kind of, like I said, new year, new gear. It's all about how am I going to make a step forward in areas of my life in 2025 that I want to make a step forward in. Sometimes those are financial, and we can talk about that. Like, how do I physically do that? But
and I feel like as you're going through the year, I think this is always one of those best practices that it's a best practice to have these goals and to have them written out. So as you're going through the year, you can remind yourself of them. But also when you come to a challenge of like, I don't know, should I do this or should I not? And you're trying to make a decision, then you can fall back to those goals and say, okay, is this going to get me to my goal? And then kind of use that to weigh
absolutely.
Which direction should I head? Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a great book, by Dan Sullivan. And it says 10x is easier than 2x. And what the concept is that if you think about 10xing any area of your life, it becomes really easy to make decisions. If you just look at 2xing any part of your life, it's really hard. So like if you, let's use that in getting physically in shape. If I want a 2x, I might sit down and say,
you are a 2x.
Oh,
achieved. Isn't that far?
It ain't even 2025 yet. Like, done. So if I think about a 2x improvement in my health, I might think, okay, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. Well, if I want to lose 5 pounds, it's really easy for me to justify eating one
cookie.
Exactly. Yeah. What's another beer on Friday night gonna hurt or whatever, right? But those are all calories that add up. But if I said, no, I've got to lose 20 pounds this year, all of a sudden it gets really specific. Wait, no, I got to cut out red meat for the next 3 months, or I've got like whatever those things are. And so many times as I go to sit down and set goals, it's this balancing act between not making it so large, so lofty that there's no way I'm ever going to do it and you're defeated. And because that's also a common thing, right? Like I'm going to get in great shape, so I'm going to the gym. I've never been to the gym before in my life.
Pounds to lose. It's so daunting.
Well, exactly. And I've never been to the gym a day in my life. Now I'm going to go 6 days a week for 4 hours. Like probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So like there's this balancing act, but to your point around if you have that goal, now it's easy to make those decisions when you're faced with a with a fork in the road. And so like, as I think about this coming up 2025 for me, I think that you might laugh. I'm calling it the year of cash.
Okay. I don't know what that word is.
So it's cash, but I'm spelling it with an AI in the middle.
Okay.
Because part of the thing that we've done over the last couple of years is we've invested pretty heavily in the business and, with the new building and just all that kind of stuff. And so it's a year for us to make sure that our budgets are what they need to be. Every 4 or 5 years, you have to go back and say, where am I spending money that maybe I don't want to spend money? So I don't know how you and Alex are, but there's a lot of subscriptions that you're like, oh yeah, I'll do that. And they're like, wait, it's 5 years later and I still have that app that cost me $20 a year and it just all renews.
And when you first do it, like, $20 a year is fine. But then you haven't used it in 3 years, but your $60 gone.
Yeah. and there's 8 of them.
Right.
All of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that's dumb. And so as I start thinking about that and this being the year of cash, it's how am I going to get my cash management back in order? And not that it's out of order, but how do I just focus?
You just feel good about it. You know where your money is.
Exactly. And so when I think about that part of the goal, it's all about structuring it so I have good information and then being intentional with what do I do and how do I make decisions there. So for us, we use Quicken. There's lots of software.
You mean you're like your personal
business, personal household financial stuff. We use Quicken. It allows me to import all of my bank accounts, my credit card accounts, those types of things. I am not, for anybody who knows me, I would rather be hung by my fingernails than go through a spreadsheet of numbers and the detail. That's not my deal. But what it does allow me to do is it does in a pretty easy, quick way. If I do it once a month, I can categorize our expenses that come in and I can see where are we spending our money and what are those places and do I want to continue doing that?
And Quicken is a great example of you just need to spend a good amount of time at the beginning and then it's pretty smart. It auto categorizes.
Absolutely.
You kind of put a little bit of the work in at the beginning and then it kind of
100%.
A little bit.
And then you can link also your your retirement account. You can link. And so what can happen is you can start to paint this picture of where am I going directionally? Is my net worth growing or is it shrinking? Is my budget growing or shrinking? I can compare different time periods. It's a way for you to measure, because if you don't measure, you can't manage.
And this episode is not sponsored by Quicken.
It is not.
Unless they
want to. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Quicken.
Yeah. There was, that old Michael Myers, movie. It was where they strummed the guitar, him and Garth. And it was hilarious. They did a recording out of their studio or their basement. They had a talk show out of
Wayne's World.
In Wayne's World, yeah. And then they went to started getting sponsored, and he'd be like, hold up the sponsor the drink. Yeah. So it's not sponsored.
It was the first podcast, maybe. They were ahead of their time.
The OG. I wonder if I could get Garth to come in and be
maybe next episode we should just show up as Garth and
start singing and playing our but anyway, so no, not sponsored by Quicken, but as I look at getting into the new year, there are those things that I can start saying, okay, and like I say, I like to say new year, new gear. And the new gear part is if it's a throwback to when we were kids. So, I don't know if you were part of this being
we were not kids at the same time, so
we were not.
Probably not.
Which we are brother and sister.
Oh yeah, we're brother and sister.
Yeah, so people should know that. And so when it was Christmas time, when the three of us were kids, we would always get new socks, new underwear,
new all under,
t-shirts, new clothes. And so when we went to grandma's, we were new all under. Yeah. We wore new everything. And it felt really cool, right? Yeah. Because partially it felt cool because the only time you got clothes was before we went to school and at Christmas. There was not really a whole lot of other clothes.
Your toes are shooting out the ends of your toes.
Exactly. And the shoes and socks. And and Danny was just happy that the new underwear wasn't a hand-me-down for me. So, and so I always like to think of the new year, new year, new gear, because you feel so good when you're wearing that new gear. And so when I go into a new year, it's helpful for me to start thinking about, okay, what am I going to be fresh with? What's going to be brand new? and not brand new, like I've never done it before, but I get this fresh start. And one of those ways is with my money. I like to sit down and say, okay, where did we spend money last year? How am I going to tighten up my budget? And not tighten it up in ways that make it take the fun out of it unless I have to. You have to do that sometimes. And that's one of them. Another one is, I'm big into having some routine. I'm not a regimented guy, but I like to have some routine. So one of the things like spiritual, I started a couple of years ago. I want to read the Bible every year. And so every day I've got a Bible that I read, and it maps out the year, and I do a different, translation each year. And so it's like, now I'm getting ready to go into this phase of, planning. I'm like, all right, well, what Bible do I want? What version? Sometimes they have, like the one I read this year had a brief, devotion for men at the end of each day. So it's like all of that kind of stuff starts to come up and say, okay, now how do I get this fresh start this year? But it has to start with some intentional thinking around what is it that I really want to accomplish? And how do I do that? And so, this year from a spiritual perspective, Sarah and I are really wrestling with, can we go on a mission trip somewhere as a family? It's like it's easy for me to plan vacations. Well, what would it look like if we said for every vacation we take some sort of service trip, and do that. And we've not done it before as a family. I've done it personally and, before, but not as a family. And so we think that would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Kind of cool. So yeah, so it's just those things. Just how do I go through very methodically and intentionally in all aspects of my life and start coming up with where do I want to go? And
this isn't a New Year thing. Alex and I just started it. So we're in October, I think maybe is when we started it, kind of end of the year. But we decided that, or we realized Alex and I are both very like structured schedule type of people. That's when we're kind of our best. So every day we know, okay, Monday and Wednesday, Alex is going to work late. Tuesday, he's going to sign off early and be with us for the day. Thursday, we kind of have a daily, same every week.
Unless XR is listening and he works late every night.
Yeah, every single night and every single morning.
Yes.
But that kind of helped us kind of map out for our week. And then also we started waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning together. And it is crazy how much we both really love it. Like before we were waking up when the kids got us up.
Yep.
And starting your day to somebody yelling your name when you're not showered.
The meatloaf.
Yeah, literally. And so starting your day like that versus on your own terms, you're showered, you work out, you're showered.
Yep.
And you have a cup of coffee and you get to chat for 10 or 15 minutes before the kids get up. It has been so awesome. So that's kind of, we plan to build off that. So first, right now we're in the stage of, okay, let's just get the habit of waking up at 5 down. And then we'll start adding in, other pieces. So we'll take that into the new year with us.
Well, and for that, to that point, a lot of times the best way to start off that new year is to look and say, what are the things in my life that are the most painful?
Right. Exactly.
What are the things so it doesn't just have to be aspirational. One of the ways you can look at that is say, what are the things that if I could eliminate, I would be
so much better.
So much better.
Yeah.
And so I think, Sarah's outstanding with that. That Sarah has like the most efficient way to do everything. And that's just how her mind works. And so I remember when the kids were little, and first going to school, she makes lunches at night, the night before.
Yeah.
All the kids' book bags are packed the night before.
Yeah.
Their clothes are set out the night before. She's like, this morning chaos of...
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And nobody likes it. And then half the time, you're the one that's down the road and like, I forgot this. No, It's not forgotten because it's all been prepared and planned the night before. And for her, what ended up happening is it also made it less dreadful to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Because it's like, get up and do all this.
Deal with it. Yeah. And it's going to be chaos. And
exactly. And for us, that's the right path. And so as people start coming up to the new year and start thinking about, well, what should I be looking at? My suggestion would be that you start looking wholly at all parts of life. And for us, me personally, what I like to do is in those categories, I like to take one category, sit down and sit with it for probably a day or two. I'll write about it. I'll say, what do I think about this? And we talked about this before, the question journal, where I just sit for 10 minutes and I just write down questions. I don't write down any answers. And so if I'm thinking about my money, I might start that with a question that says, what do I want to do with my money in 2025? What's bothering about money in 2024? If I improve, what could I improve that would make my life way better? What do I worry about the most with my money? You'll notice I just asked like 5 or 6 questions. Didn't answer any of them, but one question led to the next, led to the next.
Opens windows and
it opens all kinds of windows. And by the time I get to the end of the page, all of a sudden I had some clarity around, oh, well, really, if I could feel better about where I'm spending money, feel like I'm intentional there, that would open up this door for me to be able to do.
Or if you go back the next day and look at your questions and you're like, oh, half of these questions are surrounding this one topic or this one area. You're like, oh, that's where
that's a
you
spot.
address.
Yeah. Well, and then what, so let's say you go through that process and you get an idea. Here's where I think I want to head. If you're married and your spouse doesn't know it, like your spouse hopefully knows you're married.
Your spouse does not know.
Exactly.
That's wait,
that's a different country, I think. But no, if you're married and your spouse doesn't know what you're thinking, then you're setting yourself up to fail, right? So now have a transparent conversation that says, here's what I'm thinking. Are you on the same page? How do we get on the same page type of deal? And then it comes to, okay, what are the very next thing? And just make it a small thing. What's the very next thing I have to do to get this started? So for example, if it is, we want to learn about our budget some more. Maybe the very next thing you have to do is get Quicken or get some other version of a Quicken type product. Maybe the very next thing you have to do is just say, I'm going to stop getting everything auto deducted from our account and I'm going to go back to paying bills. So now I'm going to see every dollar that goes out of my account. It's a pain in the neck, maybe, but it could help you get your hands around where am I spending money and how I spend.
And also not waiting until the new year to do all these.
There's no reason to.
All these things like you just said earlier, like it's not, you don't want to go from I need to lose 500 pounds to working out 6 days a week in the gym. Like, okay, well, if you have these goals that you want to do in the new year, maybe let's start today with getting there so that in the new year you're rolling and can add, you can keep adding rather than now you have 10 things that you want to implement Jan 1 and
100%. Yeah. And it's like that old saying, like, I'm going to stop procrastinating once January 1st comes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like, okay, just stopping procrastinating.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
or in a year from now, you're going to wish you would have started.
Yeah.
Today, not.
Well, and so let's talk a little bit about so from a money perspective, a lot of things sometimes change at the new year. Many times people get pay raises. Many times people might get a different bonus structure at work. So like how
might get a Christmas ham.
Might get Christmas ham. I wish we did that stuff.
Kind of cute.
Yeah. And so when you think about that, one of the things that we would strongly encourage, every time you get a pay raise, split it. So let's say work comes in and says, we're giving you a 3% pay raise. Increase your 401k contribution by 1.5%, take 1.5% home. You'll see a bump in your paycheck. So that'll feel good. And you'll just now have started putting more money into your 401k and you won't even know it because your pay actually went up. It didn't go down. Once you get to 3% though, starting to come on your paycheck, you're going to forget it's ever that you're not going to find the money to put back.
Percent and then say, oh, I'll up my 401k in a year because
it's gone. You missed it. Same thing with bonuses. People, many times what happens is the bonus is spent before it's ever gotten. They're like, because mentally you're like, oh, I got that bonus coming. So it's okay. We'll do the floors now and then I'll pay it off when I get the bonus. Yep. Or, well, if you reverse that, which is not super easy to do, but if you start to reverse that and instead of pre-spending the bonus, you spend it after the fact and you say, okay, I got this bonus for $10,000. What do I want to do with it? Well, same thing with that pay raise. If you instantly said, I wasn't planning this money, I didn't already spend it, it's pretty easy now to say, I'm going to take $2,000 of this and I'm going to either save it to build my emergency fund, or I'm going to take this $2,000 and I'm going to pay down the credit card. Or I'm going to take this $2,000, I'm going to pay down the mortgage. All of a sudden, you're making huge financial strides and it doesn't feel like you're out anything because you weren't counting on that money. You hadn't pre-spent that.
But you still have $8,000 to buy a hot tub.
Exactly.
So you still are getting the little bit of the reward and the bonus.
And then what
deal.
you have to do once you buy the hot tub, invite this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be like Christmas Vacation and he promises the pool and first class plane tickets to fly everybody to his new pool or to China or whatever he's going to do. And then he gets what was it? He got a ham.
Yeah.
Something. Or,
yes.
yeah. What was it? Jelly of the month or something? What was it?
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. Yeah. But that's what happens when you pre-spend.
Right.
And when you pre-spend that bonus, the brakes are going to go out on the car at some point. The hot water heater is going to go out. The furnace, like stuff happens. And so that's why from our perspective, and it's hard, it's a mental shift, but when you start that new year, if you can just start saying, I'm going to look at this from a different perspective. I'm not going to look at all the cash that comes in I'm taking. And we would suggest you flip it upside down and you start to say, it's an old strategy, but you pay yourself first. So when I look at my income, if I have $10,000 a month in income, I don't look at that like I have to pay for all of these things, the house, the car, the kids stuff, all that. And now whatever's left, I'm going to save. You have to say I have $10,000 a month in income. $1,000 of that is going for me to invest and to save. Mm-hmm. $9,000 is what I have to live on. And what happens is you'll find you do just fine.
You can do it.
Yes. Yeah. Money is kind of like time. It expands to fill the time allotted or work does at least. And so it's the same thing with your budget. Like if you have this big balance in your checkbook, you're going to spend it. You have a smaller balance in your checkbook, you find a way to get by.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much people want to hear that as they think about New Year. But as I think about New Year, New Gear, it's all about in those different areas of life. How do I do this? And my suggestion would be, if you're not happy, and this really goes into really the book, right? The book around shattering your fishbowl, which look for it and about the new year. When you think about all aspects of your life, the next 3 or 4 years of your life are going to go by no matter what, regardless. You might as well be where you want to be than not. So if you want a promotion at work, start looking today at what are the things I could do to get that promotion at work. Do I need to sign up and take a couple of classes at the community college? Well, right now you might need 6 classes to get to that promotion. You can't do that overnight.
Right.
But if you start today, 3 years from now, you could be sitting there in the boss's seat.
Well, it's crazy. I have somebody I used to work with and their job situation changed recently. And so I was texting with her and I said, like, what is your plan in the new year? That's when her job situation is going to change. I said, what are you going to do the same thing? You're going to switch industries? What's your plan? And she literally said, I'm going to wait and see what comes my way.
Yeah.
And it blew me away in the worst way.
Yep.
And I thought, oh my goodness, you have 2 months to design what life you want.
Exactly what you want.
Like you have 2 months of you're currently being paid. So you don't have to worry. It's not like you got laid off and you have to figure something out tomorrow. You have 2 months still. And I just couldn't, I felt so bad for her in that moment that's her perspective.
And sometimes I think that there are some people that are future oriented. Sometimes people say, hey, I know what I want and I can get after it. And then there are other people that just really don't know. They struggle with like, how do I do that? That's not part of their personality or their, the things that they're good at. And so from my perspective, it really starts with, you can ask those questions. What would I love to have? And what is giving me a lot of pain? So like, let's say that right now you would love to take your family to Disney, but let's say that that's a $15,000 vacation. And you're like, there is no way I can afford a $15,000 vacation. Like, how would I do that? Okay. But if I look at it a little bit differently, if I just start putting $500 a month into a kitty, in 3 years, I can pay cash and take my family to Disney and spend $15,000 on that vacation. So, but it doesn't seem like it because I'm just putting $500 a month into the jar on my dress or whatever, and so that's maybe a poor example, but it is an example. And that's how everything in your life can be. And so when you get to this new year, it's not just about what can I accomplish in 2025. It's really as I look out and say, what do I want to accomplish in the next maybe 5 years? And if I want to get there, then let me just start taking those steps today. And I'm going to wake up 5 years from now and be a completely different person, doing all the things that.
Well, it's similar to a crackhead doesn't wake up and have no money and say, I guess I'm not smoking crack today.
Yeah. So is that going to be the title of this, this episode? Be a crackhead?
They are going to find a way to get that.
I don't know that I saw that one coming.
Well, it just dawned on me the other day.
Be a crackhead. What I would really like right now.
Well, it just dawned on me the other day. I have a lot of home projects that I really want to do.
Yep.
Alex he's much more the type that's happy how things are. He's not like he doesn't need those things like as much as I do.
Yep.
But he's the one who makes all the money. So it's really hard for me to say, oh, I'd really like to redo this kitchen when he's fine with it, whatever.
Yep.
So it just dawned on me the other day, like, you want to redo the kitchen, figure out how to make money,
sure,
enough money to redo the kitchen.
You want to redo the kitchen.
And then it's like, well, crackheads wake up and figure out how to get crack.
Yep. Yeah.
You think that they don't?
You may not want to do the things that they do to make money. See,
they get scrappy, man.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do.
So it's time for me to get scrappy.
Get scrappy. Well, but really to that point, when you talk about getting scrappy, there are lots of creative ways to do that, right? So you talk about earn some money. Maybe it's not earn money. Maybe it is bartering. Maybe you have a friend who's really good at carpentry work.
Right.
And maybe you're really good at design work. And so maybe the two of you can come together and say, hey, I can come up with designs. If you want to go out and do the work, you can bring me the stuff from your jobs and I can help design it and you can go build it or whatever. Like there's lots of ways you can start doing that. And
funny because some industries are so like that. Like hairstylists are always trading.
Yep.
But then other services aren't so much like that. And it's funny how that kind of plays out like that.
Yeah. And so, I mean, for me, I think when I think about that new year, new gear and start getting into that, that's the time when you can open up the doors, bring down the barriers. Because like, if I think about what do I want to accomplish in 1 year, that's overwhelming. It can be daunting. Like, how could I ever possibly accomplish that in a year? But if I give myself 5 years to do it, I can accomplish a lot. Like in 5 years, you could have a lake house. Well, Katie, you might not want another one.
In 5 years, I could not have a lake.
Yes. But in 5 years, I could be in a new position at work. I could have earned that, promotion. In 5 years, I could be a business owner. In 5 years, I could be debt free. In 5 years, I could have $50,000 in my 401k that I don't have today. Like
that works if you're working backwards and saying, so what am I going to do today to get there?
Yeah.
Because otherwise that's also using it as an excuse of saying,
in 5
I have 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I have 5 years.
Yeah.
No, you have to be
I'm going to starting today.
Working that
if
backwards.
I start here, because for me to say I need $50,000 by the end of the year, I don't know how I do that. But to say I need $50,000 in 5 years, all of a sudden that becomes a lot more reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
For me to say I have to have all the credit cards paid off by the end of the first quarter. Well, depending on where you're at, that might not be a reasonable goal. But to say I'm going to have them paid off in 2 years, all of a sudden, maybe I can see a path to get that done. But it has to start with where am I going? What do I want to accomplish? I would encourage you when the book comes out, buy the book. Obviously, I'm biased.
So you're writing a book.
I'm writing a book.
Okay.
Writing a book called Shatter Your Fishbowl and Live Your 2 Life.
Did I hear that it's pre-order already? This is not like me knowing the answer. It's real.
Yeah. No, you can hit our website. There's a form you can fill out that will let you say, hey, I want a copy of that when it's ready. So
okay. And then otherwise it'll be on Amazon.
At this point. Yeah, on Amazon. Yep. Hopefully.
Eventually that'll be okay.
Yep, hopefully as an Amazon bestseller.
Well, if we get everybody,
that's the plan.
Do pre-orders help with that?
No, I don't know how that works.
Okay. Ask somebody else. Ask somebody else. Okay.
Somebody will tell me.
All right. Well, maybe we'll figure that out.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, who knows when this is going to air? Hopefully it's not after the new year.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully it's before the new year. So this is.
And you're talking about the new kitchen. So you and Alex are in a new house.
We're in a new house in New Lenox. So just right down the street, about 10 minutes.
Closer to mom, which is
maybe my number one criteria.
Yep. Pool.
Yeah. Little bit of a pool. Way bigger of a house.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2.5 times our last house.
Yeah. Sarah and I, when we first built our house, which is now 20 years ago, we used to like, not tons, but when we first moved in, I like stepped off and like, this was our old house.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
exactly. It's so funny. Well, it's also like we're just getting used to everything, but it's mostly like, oh shoot, we got to get 2 of everything. One for upstairs and one for downstairs.
Well, but back to Sarah having like these systems that she has. She's got a vacuum upstairs, vacuum
exactly.
downstairs. Why am I going to carry this thing up and down?
And like whenever you're upstairs, it's always downstairs.
Yes. We have a step stool upstairs, a step stool.
Exactly. Those are the like maybe my top 2 things that I've already told Alex. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get another vacuum and another step stool because I'm constantly running downstairs.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and you're fortunate you've got laundry upstairs.
Yeah.
But fortunate and not, because like ours is on first floor. So it's a pain in the neck to bring the laundry down. But she loves it because we sit on the couch and watch TV and she's constantly
folding,
flopping laundry and folding. And it's not up and down. And so it's like with all of that.
Just learning, what do you want 2 of? What do you keep upstairs? What do you keep downstairs? We've never had a 2-story house before. So all of this is new. And Alex got so irritated with me last night. We kept seeing so random on our Ring doorbell 2 times last night after dinner, 2 women came up to our front door independently. Like one woman came up and left. And then an hour or 2 hours later, another woman came up and left. And we're like, okay,
what's going on? Yeah.
And so this happened like right before we were about to go to bed. And I made him go downstairs and check
it out.
That the like open the front door, like just look out there. What's happening? Like make sure it's locked. So then he gets back up 10 minutes later. I'm like, can you go make sure I close the garage door? So he was like so irritated that I was like, why didn't you think of this the last time I went downstairs? So we're learning like 2-story houses.
He's getting his steps in.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's really exciting though. It's fun to have new house and all that stuff. And you're talking about putting the Christmas lights up. And so it's like, even there, what is our system? How do we do it? And then once you do it this year will take you, 5 hours to put the lights up.
Exactly.
Next year it'll be 2 hours.
2 hours. And we're in that point of like, okay, everything's new. So we want to like set ourselves up for success. So like, okay, if we're going to put Christmas lights up every year, let's do it right this year. Like, let's get all the stuff. Let's get all the ladders, like whatever you need. So it's not like next year we still need that. We should have just gotten it last year. So we're trying to figure out
new year, new gear,
new a lot of things.
Yeah.
So all exciting. Well,
episode.
Hopefully you had a great holiday season, and have a great new year coming up. For more resources, head to the website, pv-wp.com.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland. Presented by Prairie View Wealth Partners. Live your 2 life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.